I went to school here, and all my brothers and sisters had classes in the morning, and classes were only about 4 hours, but I was the only one in my family who had class in the afternoon, which is about from 2 to 6 o'clock. And by the time I got home, my parents aren't home yet, and my brothers and sisters are out with my parents. So I'm in the house by myself with the housekeeper, and the only thing that was on TV was the news. So I would sit down and watch the news half an hour before my parents came home. So that's how I got interested in news.
And how did you get to C-SPAN?
I interned for CNN when I was at Michigan, and couldn't find a job a year after I graduated, so I went to work for a design firm in Michigan and moved to Washington and started to look for a job in broadcasting, but to no avail. So I went to work for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and interviewed for a job at C-SPAN a year later.
So how long have you been at C-SPAN now?
2.5 years.
Back to this trip. Basically, has it been easy for you to communicate in Vietnamese up and down the coast during the last week?
I find people to be terribly inefficient, more so than I've ever remembered it to be. The Vietnamese have always been known. I think we probably took after the French, that we're late going everywhere. We're never on time. We're terribly inefficient, a lot of bureaucracy, and I think it's worse now. When we were in the restaurant, as you can tell, you know, you wait 20 minutes for your receipts, you wait, 35 minutes for your meal, and I speak the language, and sometimes they don't even, get the orders right. So people are, I'm not sure if people are enjoying their jobs or they're not paying attention to what I'm saying, but you had orders that were mixed up. So,
where did you learn your impatience in the United States?
Actually, my parents have always been very tardy. My dad works for the U.S., for the Americans, so they're always very on time, and they can't stand being late or being pushed around. So,
back to what it's like growing up in this society, back to yourself, how do you think you would live differently if you never left here? What do you think your interest would be? Is there any way of knowing?
That's a good question, because my parents, we talked about this, because a lot of my relatives didn't leave in 75. They left in 78, which is about 3 years after we left. And they had a horrible time dealing with it. I think it's because a lot of them went to school in the United States. So to them, to think that there's no freedom here, there's, you can't say whatever you want to, you can't go anywhere you want to. And they put them in re-education camps for months on end or years. I don't think my parents could have dealt with that. But then again, it's a very different story if you had to live here and you have to go through the same thing that everybody did. I think you would have to. What else can you do?
Get any sense of a deep ideology among the people here in the South?
The one thing that I really noticed between the difference between South Vietnam and North Vietnam is that Ho Chi Minh is a lot more prevalent out there than here. I'm not sure how these people, if you ask them what they would say about him, and I'm not sure that they would like him as much as the people in the North. I mean, these people are used to having their freedom before 1975, and after that, it's a tough life for them, and I can't imagine that they would say anything that's positive about Ho Chi Minh here.
What about language? You speak fluent English. You would never know that you ever set foot in Vietnam. Was that difficult when you were 9 years old?
Sure, it's difficult. I had French before, so it makes it a lot easier when you know a language and you learn another one. It is difficult, but it's much younger when you're young to learn another language, because you can pick it up a lot easier and faster. And of course, TV helps a lot, because when you watch American TV, nothing, there's no other language but American, but English, so you sit there and you go through it. So you pick it up much faster.
A lot of places we've gone here with our cruise, people always pick you out and they say, and they'll whisper to me, "Is she American?" Why do they know that you're American? How can they pick it out?
I think it's the way I dress, the way I walk. I walk much faster than most people do. I'm around some Americans. Actually, they think you guys are French, so I'm surprised that they ask you if I'm an American.
You think we really look that French?
No, I don't.
Why do they think we're French? Or they think we're Russian?
No, they don't think you're Russian. They think you're French, because I think there used to be a lot of French who lived in this country, and a lot of people come back and visit. So they automatically assume, that any foreigners who come here who are not Asian would be French.
Why don't we walk out there and let Greg follow us so we can get away from these folks who want to get on with their camera. it seems like up and down Vietnam, at least in the big cities, the noise is really high. Of course, in Hanoi, they didn't have any cars.
Bố mẹ có chụp mắt.
Noise.
Bố mẹ con khỏe không hả?
Dạ có ạ. Có bao ai ạ?
Hôm nay nó có thấy được đứa nào nữa không?
Không ạ. Bố mẹ cháu ở nhà cháu có 5 đứa con.
Không có thấy, sao nó có thấy đứa nào hết hả?
Không ạ.
Bên này thôi đi rồi.
Dạ. Bà là ai, tên bà
Ở
là
đây
gì
được
ạ?
khỏe hả?
Tên bà là gì?
Sáng 11 đi. Bố nói là bố mẹ con biết rồi.
Tên bà là tên gì?
Cái tên là tên cái bà Tư thôi.
Bà Tư hả?
Cán số 1 là nói là
Dạ.
này ông Tư á,
Ông
Tư
Tư.
là cán số 1 là bố biết.
Dạ đúng rồi. Cảm ơn bà.
Vậy là hỏi thăm nha con.
Dạ.
Này ba cán số 1 ông chết rồi.
Ông chết rồi hả bà?
Ông chết rồi, bây giờ gặp con về đang hỏi thăm bố mẹ đi.
Dạ.
Dạ con.
Dạ. Cảm ơn bà. Dạ.
What was she saying?
She was saying she remembered my parents, which is surprising. I don't remember any of these people, and they remember my parents.
Well, let's see what's it been. 17
years. Yeah.
Have there been others here in the neighborhood that remember your parents?
Yeah, actually, the woman who just sat here remembered my parents also. There's also a woman who lives about 4 doors down. She left, I think, a couple days before we did. She now lives in California. But I don't remember any of these people.
What about this week? Oh, we just walk over here in a couple minutes. What about this week? What have been the most memorable things?
The most memorable thing is that I left the city as Saigon and I came back as Ho Chi Minh City. Huge difference. It's a lot poorer. Nothing is kept up. The streets are not kept up. The houses are not kept up. The people are different. They're no longer the same people that I remember I left. Of course, a lot of people who are our friends and people that we usually are friends with, are all gone. These people are totally, entirely different people. And when we talked to Senator John Kerry the other day at breakfast, and he said, I hate to be impolite, but what you have in this country now is a lot of peasants running the country, and that's what they are. They're people from the village who are up here running the country. They're no longer people who are in politics, people who are who are interested in running the country, people who are in politics running the country.
Is there something that you want to do that you haven't done yet?
No, not really. I haven't. I wanted to go visit my uncle, but when I went to his house, his wife told me that he's in Hanoi, and he's coming back on Sunday, so I'd love to see him. And a couple of my dad's friends.
So you visited with an uncle in Hanoi?
I visited with an uncle in Hanoi.
What was that like?
I have never met him. He, instead of going down south in '54, he decided to stay in Hanoi. He was in the Army for 10 years. It was an interesting talk. He was a very interesting person. I was very surprised to find out that after living there for so many years that he doesn't like alcohol, he doesn't like communism, he doesn't think they're efficient, he doesn't like the way of life there, and he did come down south to visit my other uncle who lives here, and he really liked it down here, and he said that if he were to live here, he would have moved to the United States.
Think you'd ever come back after this trip?
Would I ever come back?
Yeah.
Sure. No, I'm not sure I could live here anymore, but sure to visit. Yeah.
Take a look around the neighborhood. Where's school?
School is, it's on a busy street. It's this way.
You're probably about this size when you were here.
No, I doubt it. I think I was about this size.
Really?
Yeah.
Is this the same school?
Mm-hmm.
Same name?
School, same name. And if it were open, we would go in there, but it's
what's
not.
Nguyen Du Saigon?
Nguyen Du is the name of the street.
Can you remember what this school taught you?
Sure, a lot of math, a lot of reading. That's pretty much the 4 hours. There's not much teaching in 4 hours. There's a lot of homework. The teacher you come in, you do an hour math, and then you take a little recess, and then you go to another subject, which is usually language and reading. And she'll lecture for an hour, and she also requires a lot of class participation, so to make sure that you've done your homework. And then she'll go on to science, and she'll go on to another topic. But usually math would be the first subject.
What kind of a school was this?
It's a public school. It's 4 hours a day. The kids around the area who lives here would enroll in here. So all the kids...
What years?
What years?
What year were you in school?
Well, I was here when I was in 3rd grade, so it's elementary into 5th grade.
Is the school system different here than it is in the United States?
Well, the school system is very different here. In the United States, when you enroll in a school, you're there for about 6.5 to 7 hours a day. Here, you're only in school for 4 hours. That's including recess. So a lot of time you spend studying is on your own time, not at school. So they want to make sure that you go home and you do your homework. And it's more independent than in the United States.
Which system has better education?
I think this system has better education. They're very tough here. They're tougher in a French school where I also went. Because education is very important. You know, your parents will always stress education. Everywhere you go, people stress education. And they have a good school system here.
Why did the Vietnamese do so well in the United States in school?
I think it's because they come from a very strong education background. So you have a head start.
Did your parents really push you into learning?
Sure. My parents, I have to say that I don't have strict parents, but where education is concerned, they're very strict.
By the way, what did your parents think when you first called them and said, hey, I'm going back to Saigon?
My parents were very excited. I had talked to them about me going back with my sister for a visit, for a vacation, and they weren't thrilled about that idea for some reason because they didn't think that, you know, two women traveling alone is a good idea. But they were really thrilled that I wanted to go back and I wanted to see what it's like after 75.
Will they come back?
I think they will. I think after I talked to my parents on the phone, I think they will come back.
Have you talked to them on this trip?
I talked to them for about 10 minutes yesterday.
And what did they say? What was the reaction?
Well, they said it's very neat. They asked me, you know, if I remember certain places or somebody, if I've visited somebody yet.
Đi đâu đến đây vậy?
Ở Mỹ. Hồi trước em đi học
Nhưng mà
trường
chị
ở
vào trường chị phải hỏi tiếng bảo vệ cửa coi có gì không nha. Cái gì cho biết chị vô đây chị làm gì đây đâu. Không. Cái này quay phim là chị phải hỏi.
What's he saying?
He said we're not supposed to film this place without permission.
Why? Why not?
Because he says you just can't walk into a school and do whatever you want and film whatever you want. Yeah.
Didn't make any difference?
It doesn't make any difference.
Is that something new with this regime, do you think?
Oh, I think so.
Huh?
Yeah. Definitely.
You know, when we were in that school, the university yesterday, did you find any restrictions on the part of the kids on what they could say?
Well, I noticed a lot of people, when you asked them about Ho Chi Minh, some of them didn't like him, but of course they said, well, we think he's a good man. I don't know why. I mean, I'm sure there's some people who don't agree with him, but they just don't say it. So there is the limitation and restrictions on what they can say.
This is a public school. Can you remember, or did you ever talk to your parents about how much money they had to spend in order to support the school?
No, I don't remember. My parents also sent us to a French school, which costs a lot more money before I transferred to the school.
That's about how big you were when you
Yeah, that's just how big I
Bye-bye.
am.
Thank you. Jacqueline, what's that sign say? Leaning up against your school.
That sign is a sign that Ho Chi Minh says strong people lives in a strong country.
And is this a sign that they put out here just because you think because it's a school?
Oh, I'm not sure. It was never here when I was here, but it could, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. Since it's a school, it's probably a way to...
Now, you would not see Ho Chi Minh's name down here.